Yanna I'm Justin. Lead singer, creator of Queen Chief, um, native guitar player, singer. Been doing it since I was 17 years old, at least. Um, and yeah, I love it. It really changed and saved my life and gave me something to work for, and it's just really fun and exciting. I was born in Lawrence, Kansas, and my mom was only 19, and she was going to college trying to finish, and she told my dad she was pregnant, and he said he already had someone in Oklahoma pregnant. So she gave birth to me, and she was in a women's shelter, and there was just no place for an infant. So she put me up for adoption through the tribe, which is in North Dakota, and for Fort Berthold, but mostly Hidatsa blood. And my mom that adopted me was full-blooded Hidatsa from the same tribe. And they moved out here to the Northwest. So I grew up, Portland area, but I got really strong roots back in the Midwest. So anytime I do ceremonies or do anything like Sundance or sweat lodges, it's always with my elders back there in North Dakota. I met some people out here, but each tribe has its own language, its own culture, everything. When I was a kid, the first CD I ever got was from my sister, and she got me Creed, and Creed is kind of, I don't know about joke, but like they got really big for a second, and then they fell off. And I knew I liked the crunchy guitar sound, but I didn't have like a cool older brother or anything to show me like actually good music that I like. And so I had to sledge my way through all these really bad bands. And then when I got to be in 8th grade, I got my first Black Sabbath CD, my first Nirvana, and Queens of the Stone Age, and who else was there? Just all these, like Jimi Hendrix I really found and got into, Pink Floyd, like all this great music, it all hit me at once. And I kind of tooled around on guitar a little bit, but once I got all those CDs, I wanted to learn what they were playing, how they were playing it, and I just spent so many hours, just done with school, straight to the bedroom, turn on a record, and just try to find it, I got really, like, I'm not classically trained. I know some music theory stuff, but I've always gone more off feeling and sound. And if someone plays a lick, I can pick it up really fast, because that's all I did in my bedroom for years. And then I was a really shy kid, and there was other musician kids around, and I asked some of them to jam, and they told me that they wanted to play with me, and so it really opened me up, because people liked how I was playing and what I was listening to and all this stuff. And so like went from being really shy to having this whole world open up, and it just completely changed everything, But yeah, pretty guitar heavy rock bands, I'd say.
There's that song you have, it's on YouTube, In Your Eyes, or
In My Eyes?
In My Eyes.
Yeah.
I think there's a Pink Floyd influence in there.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I love Pink Floyd, and we're doing a cover of Time. That's always been my favorite song. Even if I get off of that and I listen to some other stuff for a while, I always come back to that song, because that song is just, it's so perfect. Like the way that it climbs, and then those chord changes, the majors to minors to the sevens, it's just perfect. I love that song, and the guitar solo on that is amazing too. Yeah, that's always been a huge influence on me. And there's only 12 notes. Like, no matter how hard you are trying to be original, you can't help but have that stuff influence you and hit you somehow, And so if like this is an exact chord progression from this song, like Time, everything is down to the wire, like you're totally copying it, then yeah, that's something to change. But like, yeah, I hear those influences, and that stuff excites me, because that's my favorite music that I love of all time. And so if I'm doing something that's my favorite of all time, it means that it's, that's the stuff that really gets me excited and speaks to me.
As a composer, how did you start writing songs? I mean, I have to call you a composer as opposed to a songwriter,
Right.
just from what I'm hearing.
How did I start? I found on this little practice amp that I had. It was really goofy, but you had a little button you hit, and it was overdrive. And I turned it on, and I'd have it turned all the way up, and it was just all this really gnarly feedback, just it's making all these crazy noises. And my mom, because I was doing that, and she came upstairs. She's looking at me. I go, hi. She goes, are you okay? I go, what do you mean? She goes, your amp sounds broken. Are you making that sound on purpose?
Uh-huh.
And I just really tool around, and I would find a riff that I liked, and then I would find another place for it to go, or I might write one piece of a song and then have these two and I'd bring them together. And it was really just experimentation. And I would almost do chord changes chromatically. Like I'll go from a B and then I'd try A sharp. I didn't like that, so B to A, and just try every combination I could out until I found the things that I really liked. So it was just a lot of failing and being bad at it at first, until I, now I have my little moves that I like to go to, chords that I like to go to, but it's hard at first. You have to spend a lot of time being bad. Fortunately, I was having a lot of fun being really bad, and so that made it easier, I know I've talked to some people, they pick up a guitar or a bass or piano, and they can't play exactly what they hear, what they want, so they get frustrated and drop it really quickly, and that's unfortunate, Like, just keep going because you love it. And so that's what I'd say was my biggest influence for composing music, was just loving it and loving the failure. And then when you have those successes or those things that really get you excited, they're that much better because you spent all this time looking for it, and then it finally hits you, like heart starts pumping fast, you get that excited feeling in your stomach, and then if you can do it with the whole band in the room, and all 5 people have that feeling together, it's really something, and it's that human connection, that stuff that makes you keep coming back to it,
And how did Queen Chief begin?
I was taking a music history class, and there was this kid who played guitar in that class, and he needed someone to back up for a show that he had, just 2 acoustic guitars. And so I learned a couple songs with him. We did this little show, and I really liked the way that he was playing, and so we started just jamming together. And then I had a friend who played drums, and I knew I wanted to make a band, and one of the very first songs I ever wrote was North Dakota Spirit, and that was at my grandma's wake in North Dakota. I had some really weird stuff happen to me on that trip, like seeing things, particularly around the drum. When the drum would be playing, I would see family members like standing off like at the corner of my eye that had been dead for a long time. And I just had these really weird feelings, and I had my acoustic guitar with me on that trip, and when they were playing the drum and singing the song for my grandma, that's how I got that initial beat, that bum, 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 because they were doing that kind of beat. And so then I was listening to these other powwow tracks, and when I'd come up with guitar riffs to these drum tracks, it was really exciting, because I've always loved powwow music and rock music, and so when I'd bring them together, it really sounded like something to me. And then, in the last couple of years, when we've been able to get together with people in powwow groups and do it as a live performance, that's one of my favorite stuff I've done with music of all time. I've always heard that in my head, but I didn't know enough people to bring that together. And now that we do, it's really something. But it started as an accident. I just got these people together, and I knew that I wanted to keep doing it. And so if someone wasn't into the project or didn't want to keep playing, or X, Y, or Z reason you don't play with someone in a band, I knew I didn't want to let the whole project stop just because this one person. And I didn't want to be beholden, like you have to be in this band, or like if we don't have them, we can't play music. I've always just had the open door policy since I started it, like from the very beginning. Like if people want to come and play with me and have fun, that's awesome. Open arms. I don't care who they are, where they come from. Like if they got the skills and want to play with us, then absolutely, let them in. And that's always been my attitude, and it's led me to some pretty good places and meet some amazing people.
That song, Kalijah.
Kalijah?
Kalijah?
Kalijah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What's the story of that?
So Hank Williams, he's a old country guitar player from I think the 30s and 40s. When they first started recording music, he was one of the first, and so he's a staple, like a big pillar of country music for how it got its start and everything. When I do these trips up to Mount St. Helens with my dad when I was a kid, he'd always be playing Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, and that song Kalijah would always come on. It was about this wooden Indian, and that had the guitar, the acoustic guitar, and they had that bum 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 beat in the background, and it was fascinating to me because I always heard powwow music or country music or rock music, and then he was the first time I heard someone kind of mash those together. He wasn't doing it. I don't know if it was an honor of the powwow music. He says the word Injun a lot in that song, but nonetheless, I still heard it, and it really piqued my interest. And that song always stuck with me from when I was a kid, and so I knew I wanted to do something with that song and have a real powwow drum in there and really honor that type of music. And that stuff had always been in the back of my head. And then when I finally got hooked up with people who had powwow drum and wanted to play music with us, I could make that happen. That was so exciting. That was one of my favorite moments ever. When we recorded that and made it happen, that's one of the proudest things I've ever done with music, was that song specifically.
Yeah, that really attracted me to you. Yeah, your
A
music.
lot of people said that. At the last show we did, someone said that the powwow drum, along with that song, they said it was just really powerful. I talked to a woman, she said she went to a powwow, and she didn't understand the words that they were saying, but she started crying, just because she could feel the emotion in their voices, and that, along with that drum beat. I think that drum beat speaks to our hearts, it beats like our hearts do, and that's why people feel so connected to it. Yeah, I just love both of those types of music. They both really speak to me, and so I love bringing them together.
Have you guys been on the road?
We've done some traveling. We've played, gone down to Eugene, gone to Corvallis, gone to even government camp, just some up and down the West Coasts playing. We've never done a full-fledged tour, which I very much want to do. We talked to a management company, and they said that they want to work with us, but you need to have a tour under your belt first. I haven't had, I think, a stable enough core group of people that have been wanting to do that, because it's a big ask. It's a lot of work,
Sure.
and we probably want to kill each other by the time you're done with it. But yeah, it's still something that I very much want to do.
What would you say to young people thinking about being a musician?
I'd say try it, and if music really speaks to you in a very special way, that don't get frustrated. Like, let yourself fail, let yourself not be good, but just spend time with it. Because I had a really hard time with bar chords at first, and that song Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, that's all bar chords, and so I was really struggling with it. But then I just every day would go after it, and then I'd one day where I could play the intro perfectly, did all the bar chords perfectly, and then that's all I could do for like a month straight. I was so proud of myself. And so you hit all these different achievements and you just keep going with it, and it gets more and more exciting. You can feel yourself get more and more better, and it gives you this confidence, and show yourself that you can really achieve something. Like, you can really open up doors for you, but don't, like, you have to allow yourself to be bad at it at first. Like with anything, you have to start somewhere, and I think it can really change people's lives for the better. And last time I was in North Dakota, we'd gotten all this stuff over the trip, like my grandpa giving me stuff, my mom, and so our suitcases were full to begin with. After all that stuff, they were like, really shove it down and have to barely zip it closed. And my grandma said, I want you to stop by on your way to the airport. And so we stopped there, and I go, you wanted to give us something? And I thought, like, just maybe a memorial, just something small. She goes, yeah, here. She handed us 4 garbage bags with blankets. We're filling with them. And so we had to undo the zip cases and just really stuff everything in together. And I think we ended up having to put 2 of them in the car seat bag because it was just overflowing. And, after all the years, you do all these things, different ceremonies, meeting people, you get blankets, and you get cool stuff like this. And yeah, it's nice to reflect and remember that time that you got that blanket, or that, I got one for sweat lodge, and like all this stuff, I love those. I love the gift giving with my grandparents, because it always means something, and I think with with holidays that we have as Americans, like with Christmas, all of our holidays, it seems to be, it's this time of year, go buy this stuff. It's this time of year, go buy that stuff, And I never felt any real spiritual connection to that. But when I went and did my first Sundance ceremony with my grandpa, it just hit me different. And when I did my first sweat lodge, like, I could just feel inside myself this black hole, like where there's no spirituality. And when I started doing that stuff, it just exploded. It was like the Big Bang, and it was just incredible. And so I love all those ceremonies and all those songs and all the things that my grandpa's given to me and taught me. It's amazing. I love that, those native roots,
When you first heard about Jim Pepper?
Kenny, that does the power drum with us, Sovereign by Right, he told me about Jim PepperFest, and he's definitely, him and my friend Michael Yellow Buffalo, he told me about all the happenings with it. And then me and a couple of my bandmates, we looked him up, and my keyboard player, he really likes jazz, and so he really took a shine to it. I like jazz. It's not, I have definitely jazzy influences, like the drum beats. I love that swing beat, like Black Sabbath. They were big about that. Bill Ward, the guy who drummed for them, like with Fairies Wear Boots, the riff goes bum, 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 and that's an old swing beat, bum, 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 like really throwing the beat, with that last minute hit.
What kind of guitar do you play? What do you like about it?
I got a Gibson SG, I think it's a 63 reissue. I love the neck on it. It's really thin, and so it's easier to do bar chords. I've always found with like Squires, or they have these really thick necks, and it's just, you have to work so much harder. And then it's got the long neck on it too, and so you can get to more notes. And the cutaway on it's really nice too. You know, a lot of guitars will stop here and they have this fretboard that keeps going, so you have to play like this instead of having your full control. And it's really warm. It has a really warm sounding tone. And then if you switch to the other pickup, it can be really bright. You know, so with the same guitar, I can do Kalijah, which is like really chimey kind of guitars, or I can do our song Give It To Me, which is really warm, fuzzy, chunky. There's a style of music called stoner rock, and it's all about that. You know, like detune the guitars, and it's really warm and big sounding. And so with the same guitar, I can get that big sound or that more light, shimmery type of sound. And so it's a good, you know, well-rounded guitar. I don't know if I really love the look of them, but I don't have to see it when I'm playing, and so I don't care. You know, as long as the people in the audience are okay with it. So I was talking about my grandpa. I just wanted to say, you know, when I first found my birth mom, we drove back there to North Dakota, and then when I was in the hotel where we were going to meet her, I think I changed outfits 30 times. I was so nervous and just sweating, and like, this crazy thing, you know, like I have a birth mom and now I'm going to meet her, and I was, you know, like all this stuff was going through my head. So I went down into the parking lot, just pacing, waiting, and she finally pulled up, and I walked up to her and we just gave each other a hug for like 5 minutes, just crying. And it was a weird feeling, because this person's essentially a stranger, your first time ever meeting them, but you already love them, and you're already grateful that they're in your life, you know? It was so unique. I've never experienced anything like that before. But the coolest was, she said, "You're going to meet your grandpa tomorrow." She told me about grandpa. He was in Vietnam. He was in the Green Beret. He had 2 Bronze Stars for bravery, Purple Heart. Grew up very traditionally. They didn't have a need for money until he was 20 years old. You know, they grew up in a cabin, earth lodge cabin. And she told me all these things about him. And so I got really nervous, because I'd never really met anyone quite like that before, who was so deep into the Native culture. You know, my adopted family, they grew up very Catholic, and so there was some of that there, but like with my birth family, they're deep. Those roots are deep, and the traditions are very deep. And she said that he was leading Sundance, and you know, Sundance, 4 days long. 3 of those days you have to fast, no food, no water. And we go out there, and they have the piercing ceremony there as well, and that's very intense. It's a lot to even watch, let alone do. And so we go out there, and there's guys my age in their 20s dropping out left and right. It's too hard for them to finish. My grandpa's there in his 70s leading it, you know, and he's the only one in the family that can grow like a big full mustache. And so he's sitting under the shade, and I was really intimidated just staring at him. And my mom comes up behind me, she nudges me, she goes, "Go talk to him." So I go, "Oh, okay." So I walk up under the shade where he's sitting like this, and I just kind of walk up, reach my hand out, I go, "Hey, I'm Justin." And he kind of looked me up and down, and he stands up and said, "No, you're not." He blew all the cigarette smoke out. And I got really freaked out. I was like, I came in wrong, I said something wrong. You don't reach your hand out, like, what am I doing? So my mind's racing again. What did I do wrong? And Grandpa said, "No, you're not. You're a grandbaby. Come here, grandbaby." And he gave me this big hug. And he squeezed me so tight. And he said, "You finally came home, my boy." So it was this immediate acceptance into the family. And by the end of that trip, he let me in on my first sweat lodge. And then the following year, I got to dance my first Sundance. He gave me my native name, which is Madega de Girabe Hashish, means Red Buffalo Bull. And he named my 2 boys, and I got to just dive headfirst into all this Native culture I had been craving but wasn't able to get growing up out here in the Pacific Northwest, you know? And it just completely changed my life for the better. So it opened up all these doors, and it unlocked this thing in me that I didn't even know was locked up. you know, and it's just been an amazing journey. And yeah, I just wanted to say that.